Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Bhagavata Sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for allowing me to sit here. I feel very unqualified, but in front of Srila Prabhupada and all these wonderful deities and devotees, I'd like to make a humble attempt to study something from Srimad Bhagavatam and share together. 32. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 7, Text 32. And this is entitled, What Prahlad Learned in the Womb. Hari Sarveshu Bhuteshu
Hari Sarveshu Bhuteshu
Bhagavan Ashta Ishvaraha
Bhagavan Asta Ishvaraha
Iti Bhutani Manasa
Iti Bhutani Manasa
Kamaste Sadhu Manayet
Kamaistai Sadhu Manaye
Hari Sarveshu Bhuteshu
Hari Sarveshu Bhuteshu
Bhagavan Asta Ishvaraha
Bhagavan Asta Ishvaraha
Iti Bhutani Manasa
Iti Bhutani Manasa
Kamaste Sadhu Manayet
Kamaistai Sadhu Manaye
Hari Sarveshu Bhuteshu
Hari Sarveshu Bhuteshu
Bhagavan Asta Ishvaraha
Bhagavan Asta Ishvaraha
Iti Bhutani Manasa
Iti Bhutani Manasa
Kamaste Sadhu Manayet
Namaste Sadhu Manaye Hari Sarveshu Bhuteshu
Hari Sarveshu Bhuteshu
Bhagavan Asta Ishvaraha
Bhagavan Asta Ishvaraha
Iti Bhutani Manasa
Iti Bhutani Manasa
Namaste Sadhu Manaye
Kamaste Sadhu Manayet Hari Sarveshu Bhuteshu Bhagavan Asta Ishvaraha Iti Bhutani Manasa Kamaste Sadhu Manayet Hari Sarveshu Bhuteshu Bhagavan Asta Ishvaraha Iti Bhutani Manasa Kamaste Sadhu Manayet Hari,
Hari
the Supreme Personality of Godhead,
the Supreme Personality of Godhead
Sarveshu,
Sarveshu
in all,
Bhuteshu
Bhuteshu, living entities,
living entities
Bhagavan,
Bhagavan
the Supreme Personality,
the Supreme Personality
Aste,
Aste
is situated,
is situated
Ishvaraha,
Ishvaraha
the Supreme Controller,
the Supreme Controller
Iti,
Iti
thus,
thus
Bhutani,
Bhutani
all living entities,
all living entities
Manasa,
Manasa
by such understanding,
understanding
Kamai,
Kamai
by desires,
by desires
Tai,
by
those,
those
Sadhu Manayet,
Sadhu Manaye
one should highly esteem.
one should highly esteem.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
One should always remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead in His localized representation as a Paramatma, who is situated in the core of every living entity's heart. Thus, one should offer respect to every living entity according to that living entity's position or manifestation. So responsively, one should always remember
One should always remember
the Supreme Personality of Godhead,
the Supreme Personality of Godhead,
in his localized representation as the Paramatma,
in its localized representation as Paramatma,
who is situated in the core of every living entity's heart.
in the core of every living entity's heart.
Thus one should offer respect
Thus one should offer respect
to every living entity,
to every living entity,
according to that living entity's position
according to that living entity's position
or manifestation.
or manifestation.
Purport. Hari Sarveshu Bhuteshu. This statement is sometimes misunderstood by unscrupulous persons who wrongly conclude that because Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is situated in every living entity is therefore Hari. Such foolish persons do not distinguish between the Atma and the Paramatma, who is situated in every body. The Atma is the living entity, and the Paramatma is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The living entity, the individual living entity, however, is different from the Paramatma, the Supreme Lord. Therefore, Hari Sarveshu Bhuteshu means that Hari is situated as Paramatma, not as Atma, although Atma is a part of Paramatma. Offering respect to every living entity means offering respect to the Paramatma situated in every living entity. One should not misunderstand every living entity to be the Paramatma. Sometimes unscrupulous persons designate a living entity as Dalitra Narayan, Swami Narayan, this Narayan or that Narayan. One should clearly understand that although Narayan is situated in the core of the heart of every living entity, the living entity never becomes Narayan. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupam Dhamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Parikamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sarvaitam Sarvadutam Parijana Sanitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namoshtate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriya Vanchikalpa Taruvyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaurava Govinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. So, a short purport, and here Srila Prabhupada is saying, immediately countering the argument that we can ever become God. As some, Prabhupada uses the word unscrupulous, that means they have no, they don't care. How dare they? Prabhupada uses quite strong words sometimes to criticize people that he says ultimately are envious of Krishna, because they want to become But as we understand from the teachings of this wonderful Srimad Bhagavatam, the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, that the living entity and Krishna are always separate, the Atma and the Paramatma. And the whole process of Bhakti Yoga is for us to develop that, once again, revive that loving relationship that we have eternally with Krishna. So Prabhupada was very strong on in criticizing those people that claim to be, that they can eventually become Narayan. He given us very clear instructions throughout his wonderful text that is translated for us from the Srimad Bhagavatam and from the Brahma Samhita. Give very clear instruction of the difference between the living entity and the Supreme Lord. And this is actually our constitutional position, is to be reinstated in our eternal relationship with Krishna in various different kinds of loving relationships. So Krishna is existing in the internal energy, he's with the internal energy. And here we are wandering around the material world, which is also the energy of God, also the energy of Krishna. Everything comes from him. All spiritual and material worlds emanate from Krishna. But in this material world, we, Jivatmas, the infinitesimal spirit souls, are now trying to become the enjoyers. We want to take the place of Krishna. Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, eternally existing in the spiritual realm, always surrounded by his loving devotees, engaging in wonderful, amazing pastimes. And then he expands in his different forms. First as Lord Balaram, he expands, and then Lord Balaram expands into the Narayan forms, the Vishnu forms, into the material world. It all comes through Balaram. Ultimately, Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. And then we, fallen living entities, have come down into this world to also try to enjoy like Krishna. And Krishna, fulfilling everybody's desire, he fulfills our desire. Oh, you want to enjoy without me? Okay. So, but we're very fortunate that somehow or other we've come across these wonderful teachings that Srila Prabhupada has made available all over the world. We have these oases, these spiritual centers where we can come and worship the Lord. We can see the Lord being worshipped very nicely. We can offer him beautiful flowers. We can offer him beautiful clothes. We can offer him beautiful ornaments. We can offer him garlands. We can offer him our heartfelt prayers. We can sing the glories of Krishna. We can hear the words of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which we understand is the incarnation of Krishna in written form, in spoken form. But living into this with Krishna's the internal energy in the spiritual world. The material world is the external energy. And the Jiva souls, we are actually the spiritual internal energy also, but we have the tendency to become covered over with the marginal energy. So we have a tendency to become covered over. So the whole process of Krishna consciousness, as Srila Prabhupada is very clearly given to us, is to help us to revive, not give us something new, but to help us to revive that lost, that forgotten consciousness, because it's become covered over in this material world. So step by step, we follow this process, and it's so wonderful that we can go to practically any country in the world now, and we can come to these wonderful spiritual oases. And just by following the process that Srila Prabhupada painstakingly set up, morning program, worship of the deities, Guru Puja, worship of the spiritual master, everyday studying at least something from these wonderful books. In the evening also, if possible, read from Bhagavad Gita or some Krishna book, tell some stories. And in this way we can revive our lost divine consciousness and being reinstated into that divine consciousness again. And in that divine consciousness, then we can actually feel that eternal happiness. The difference between the spiritual world and the material world is spiritual, everything about Krishna, and the spiritual world, Sat, Chit, Ananda. Eternal, full of knowledge, full of bliss. But we can see everything in this material realm, which is also the energy of Krishna. But everything here is asat, it's not eternal, it's temporary. Chit, spiritual world, here, full of ignorance. Anand, full of misery. Yes, there is happiness in this world. Sometimes people challenge, why do you say there's no happiness? I can enjoy. But if you just enjoy through the senses, it's just a drop of water, like a drop of water in the ocean. It doesn't really satisfy. It doesn't satisfy the soul within. Because we're not these temporary material bodies. We identify with them. Even we as devotees, after so many years hearing this philosophy over and over again, still it's not easy to not identify with these bodies. Krishna's made this illusion very powerful, very strong. We have to work within the constraints of these bodies. Male body, Malaysian body, Indian body, Chinese body, English body, old body, now old body. You know, so we have to work within the constraints of that as well. Forgetful memory going, legs aching, pains in the body. And one day, and we've built so many attachments with our family, with our friends, with our contacts, with our colleagues. But one day, we have to leave them all behind. So this sublime, wonderful process of Krishna consciousness, helping us to revive that lost consciousness. And we reinstate. So we, as followers of Srila Prabhupada, as followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who came here just over 500 years ago, and came to spread the message. He said, in this age of Kali Yuga, everything is very polluted, everything is degraded. Yes, we see there's so many advances in technical, we have our smartphones, we have all these artificial lights, we have the fans, everything to make things comfortable as possible in this world, but it doesn't really satisfy the soul. Just satisfying, making the body comfortable doesn't satisfy the soul. So there's so many advancements, so-called advancements, but all these things are actually become distractions and take us away from our eternal occupation, which is to serve Krishna. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came just over 500 years ago, and he gave us a very simple process, which we, very fortunate souls, have somehow or other got the faith to take up this method. Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam, kalo nashjeva, 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 gatyeva nitam. In this age of Kali, there's no other way than chanting the holy names of the Lord. So we take our vows, we take our initiation, we vow to chant a minimum 16 hours a day, and then we come together and we glorify the Lord. Yes, sometimes sadhana becomes a little bit sort of, it is sadhana, it is a practice. Sometimes we struggle even to follow this beautiful process, but we know that if we carry on, our heart will become purified, and then we can relish and enjoy the sweetness of being in that eternal relationship with Krishna. And by serving Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he has promised that this message will be taken to every town and every village all over the world. And we can see practically that's happening now. Since the COVID time, now everybody was restricted in their homes and they couldn't move anywhere. But then the multimedia opened up, and now we can listen to lectures from devotees all over the world. We can take advantage. So it's not that we say no to technology, but rather we engage it in the service of the Lord. All that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer, you do that as an offering unto me. So we can use all these things in Krishna's service. We have to be careful that it doesn't become a distraction, but we can use it to serve Krishna. and it does have its advantages for us as well in this age. Even the microphone, if I was speaking here without the microphone, you'd have to become closer and I'd have to shout and strain my voice. So we use all these things, like Srila Prabhupada did. Of course, things were different, 50, 60 years ago, but he used his dictaphone and he translated, painstakingly translated these books, these law books for humankind. So it's our duty now as disciples, as devotees who have taken vows to serve the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to serve the mission of Srila Prabhupada, to try our best to study these books, to read every day, at least something. If we share and study in the association of devotees, it is much more powerful. So, it's our duty to take this sincerely to our heart and try our very best not to waste this human form of life. We're very grateful for the Lord that somehow or other we have this faith to still carry on and serve the devotees, serve the spiritual master, serve the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and perfect this human form of life. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you very much. If anyone's got any questions or queries or comments or realizations that they want to share, please feel free to go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you very much for the very wonderful class. Thank you for coming to Malaysia. Welcome to Malaysia. And Mataji, like this verse says, we have to see that the Lord is present in everyone's heart. And the Gita, Krishna says, Pandita Sarva Samadarshana. But it's not that easy. Because we see the various different bodies, and then we see different kind of intelligence, different kind of behaviors. Sometimes some behavior nice, sometimes not nice, and we can develop some enmity towards a particular person, especially those who don't behave well, even among humans. So how do we actually see beyond that and see the Lord in the heart and show the respect to that person?
Okay, so obviously there has to be some level of discrimination there. And the nectar of devotion as well, it talks about that. Nectar of instruction, it talks about that. And at the end of this purport, Prabhupada says, one should clearly understand that although Narayan is situated in the heart of every living entity, thus one should offer respect to every living entity according to the living entity's position or manifestation. So we have to offer respect because we understand that ultimately everyone is a Jivatma coming from Krishna, and Paramatma is in their heart. So Krishna loves everyone in his living entities dearly, but because of their offences, their contaminations, their false desires, they are either taking on different forms or they're acting in a way that's very belligerent, very offensive to others. But we actually should try and develop some compassion then, because we see that the way they're behaving and the way they're acting, they're on the fast track to hell. So naturally, we also feel sometimes some enmity there. We feel a bit, but Krishna teaches in the Bhagavad Gita to be equipoised in honour and dishonour, and treat everybody with respect. So sometimes our mentality as well is not always as pure as it should be. And even amongst devotees, we have to be very careful, because especially devotees who have taken on the process of Krishna consciousness, but we have to remember that we're in the hospital. We're not cured yet. We're undergoing the process. Like we've gone in the shower to get clean. we're still not clean yet. So sometimes even devotees, we may see that acting in ways that is maybe not 100%, very far from 100% how it should be. But still we should offer that devotee or other living entity who's acting, offer them respect. Because we see the Paramatma in their heart. We see that they're making mistakes, they're making wrong choices, they're acting under the modes of material nature. We don't know, somebody might be quite rude to us when we go out in the street or something, you know, dismissing others or whatever, or especially when you're in the car driving around, the road rage and all that. People behave, you know, very demoniacally. And even when we see that demoniac behavior in ourselves, all those thoughts and feelings come up, the first step is to recognize that. And we might have an antagonistic feeling towards somebody who's behaved badly to us, but then we should reflect on it, introspect on it, and understand the philosophy as we learned it. Paramatmas is there, they're covered over, they're behaving in that way. So we should still offer respect, try and be calm, try and be peaceful in our dealings with them, especially with devotees. But sometimes there can be clashes as well between devotees, and that's very painful to see. It's painful to be part of that, and you can develop this kind of negative mentality. So we have to try and, we keep studying these books, we keep reading Bhagavad Gita, so much in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna talks about this equipoised, and there's one, is in the 13th chapter that there's a whole list of qualities that one should develop. You know, first one is like humility, pridelessness. So when we see that we can't really change anybody else. We have to accept them wherever they are. But we can change how we respond to them and how we react to them. And if we don't always act in the best way to begin with, then we use that as a learning opportunity to reflect, to introspect, and find out what it was about that person or that incident that happened that's triggered something in me, and try and work it out in yourself. Because when we look at examples like Narada Muni, for instance, great spiritual master of the whole world, you know, the whole universe, traveling in, he met all sorts of people. Magrari the hunter. Now Magrari the hunter was acting, as we know, in a very cruel way, half-killing animals, laughing. Oh man, better to half-kill them, you know. I like to see them writhe in pain. But Narada Muni didn't go there and, you know, call him a bad name or anything like that. He was very calm and very peaceful, but he explained to him the situation. Don't you know that you're going to get some bad karma for acting like this? We can't always do that with everybody, but we still need to treat them with respect and not make the situation worse by us reacting in a, you know, in a hostile way as well. So I think it's introspection and trying to, and when a situation comes up, think about it afterwards, reflect on it, discuss it with one of your friends, one of your colleagues, and try and think, how can I behave better myself in the future, rather than trying to, you should change and you should be like that. Is that okay? Is that helpful? Very good.
Krishna, Mataji. Krishna is the enjoyer. So, what is that we can't, what we can attain that enjoyment? That enjoyment that Krishna sees that we cannot see, we cannot attain.
Well, the thing is, when we're in loving relationship with Krishna, when we're actually serving Krishna, then actually we get more enjoyment. It's just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came down into this world. One of the reasons he came was to taste what Radharani's feeling. How can she feel so much joy serving me? I can't taste that. Krishna, he feels that. So in a way, Radharani's got something that Krishna hasn't got in a kind of way. So he comes down as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. But when we're in proper connection with Krishna, when we're acting in our constitutional position, we feel the greatest bliss. Is it not true? I don't know what your character is, what your nature is, what your service is. But when we're doing that service, that is really in tune with our nature. And when we're doing that wholeheartedly to serve Krishna, when we're speaking to somebody, maybe a new person or a family member, and they're starting to get it, or they come forward and engage in service, does that feel, how do you feel? It's a great, I don't think you can get, for me that's the best feeling in the whole world. And much more enjoyable than just me trying to going to enjoy my senses. But when we talk about being the enjoyer for ourselves, usually look at it, it's these physical senses. You know, I want to be comfortable, I want to see this, feel this, do this. But when we do it in connection with Krishna, we feel a higher level of enjoyment, feel that bliss. Is that okay? Is that kind of what you're saying? Krishna's the supreme enjoyer. That's why we came here, because they're a little bit envious of him. I want to be the supreme enjoyer. And that's, and Krishna fulfills our desire. Okay, I want to enjoy without people, I'll go, but it's not going to work, because you're only going to really feel that ananda, supreme bliss, when you're in loving connection with him. We try to find loving relationships in this world, generally through our family members, generally it's through family members. But it always lets us down, because we're all vulnerable soldiers. Krishna's the only one who's infallible. So, and he's always enjoying very nice foods, dressing very nicely. It's about finding that service that ignites your soul, that wakens you up. For me, when I think my best service that I enjoy most is when I'm doing dramas with Krishna, you know, working with a group of devotees. And it's hard work and it's tough, and sometimes you pull your hair out, but when it all comes together and you perform that for the joy of the devotees, it's so blissful, you know. So it's like whatever service, you find that service that really ignites the soul, and then enjoy with Krishna rather than separate from him. Is that okay? Thank you very much, Hare Krishna. Thank you for the wonderful service that you obviously do here, supporting this temple, supporting this whole yatra. And may Srila Prabhupada and our wonderful deities always bless you, keep you strong and guide you and protect you to carry on this mission of Chaitanya.
The great Janaki Mataji ki, Srila Prabhupada ki,